mowing lawns for the city parks department. And I still work full-time, and we agree that women deserve equal pay, and he's going to fight for that when he goes to Washington. When I met Josh, he was teaching at the Naval Academy. He was a graduate from the Naval Academy. He became class president at the Naval Academy, and he'd go on to teach political science. He was also getting his master's degree, his second master's degree, and he'd go on to get a third. But no matter how many master's degrees he has, I'm still the boss of his family. But Josh has incredible accolades. I mean, he's ready to serve in Congress. He served in the Navy for 12 years active duty. And when he was in the Navy, he was a UN peacekeeper in Liberia. He was the second in command on a Navy warship in Bahrain. He served in Afghanistan on the border of Pakistan, rebuilding a nation. He co-wrote a book on leadership with classmates from the Naval Academy. The book became an LA Times bestseller, and they donated all the profits to veteran charities. So, and he also, when he got out of the Navy after 12 years, he is now in the reserves, and he started a technology company. So I share this just as a bit more background. I know you've probably heard it a lot, and you've probably read it before, but it's important to know that we have someone who is ready to serve. Josh knows how to get work done. I can vouch for that from the course of our lifetime, and I think we deserve a representative who will get things done for us. So let's hear from our next Congressman, Josh Welle.
Thank you so much for being here. We're going to try to stay on schedule and wrap up around 8 o'clock. So we have about an hour together. I did want to speak for a few minutes about how I'm feeling and probably how you're feeling, which is this country is at a crossroads. We're anxious, we're sometimes nervous, but if you came here frustrated or nervous or anxious, I want you to leave all that anxiety in the parking lot. I want you to feel the energy in the room, get to know your neighbors, feel the sense of optimism, because if we can thank President Trump for one thing, he has stimulated a sense of civic duty around the country. He has woken people up that it's our time to get to work. We got a little over 40 days to win an election on November 6th to get this country back on track. And we are grateful for all the activist groups that have started to march after Trump's election, for the moms that are writing letters and post-its, the indivisible groups, to the activists and advocates who are saying, we're not going to take it. This is our country, and we're going to get it back on track by electing leaders of character, leaders that listen, and leaders that put our interests first. Now that sets the context for our race to represent you in Washington against a longtime incumbent named Chris Smith. And Chris Smith's 38 years old, I'm 38, and he nominated me to the Naval Academy 20 years ago because he saw that leadership potential. And we're going to show him what leadership really looks like this year. And one of those things is that leadership is about listening and serving others and enabling their opportunities. And for 25 years, Chris Smith hasn't done a town hall. He thinks this is a dangerous environment. He thinks that we're too raucous. He thinks that we're a threat to him. We know that's wrong. He is violating, in my opinion, the social contract of a representative because he doesn't listen to us. He's violating the social contract when he goes to Colson High School and to inject fear into the minds of our high school students about their futures and on issues of equality and justice. He's disqualifying himself and he's violating that social contract when he lives in Virginia for decades and doesn't live in our community. Doesn't send his kids to school here, doesn't make himself available at his office. So many faces in this audience I've gotten to know who have asked for answers on DACA, answers on climate change, answers on Trump's foreign policy, answers on the new tax plan that's bad for New Jersey families and the state and local tax deduction. We want answers, and Chris Smith is silent. Well, we're gonna make our voices heard on November 6th. And he's gonna hear what the sounds and the voices are of our residents, because your concerns are first and foremost in my mind. And they're the issues of 2018. They're not the issues of 1980s or 1990s. They are issues on gun safety and healthcare, issues of job creation and making sure families can get ahead. It's making sure we don't have an exodus of seniors in our district because taxes are just so high here in New Jersey. And we need to fix Trenton, and we need to fix Washington and make life more affordable. And you can only do that if you listen and serve others. So my life has been committed to service. It started with my mom and dad. I was born in Trenton, I was raised in Wall Township, and my mom was a teacher at St. John Vianney in Homedale. And my father was a prosecutor for over 35 years, and they taught me about service. And I got to go to the Naval Academy, and I defended that Constitution against enemies, foreign and domestic. I want you to know that it's not about political party for me. It's not about the far right versus the far left. It's about service and defending the Constitution and the institution it affords us at a time when those institutions are being eroded away right before our eyes. This is a scary time in America. And if we don't answer our call to service, if we don't wake up, activate our neighbors, then the things that we care about are going to slip away. So I am grateful for you being a part of this democracy. We have time to listen to one another. I want to hear your stories. I want to hear the things you're struggling with. And I want to give you my opinion and my approach and my vision for a stronger, better, safer Central Jersey. Thank you so much. So just kind of raise your hand, tell me your name and what town you're from, and let's hear your question. And we have Josh running around. Josh, we call him Josh 2.0, is one of the leaders in here.
Hi, Josh.
Thanks.
If I may, who's Josh 3.0? This is Josh 2.0.
There you go.
So I'm Gene Horowitz from Redneck, and we've met before. Just kind of a basic question for you. I'm here with my son Josh, who's a first-time voter, and kind of piggybacking on what you said, you did a terrific job crossing the district, listening to people, speaking with people, being there, and that obviously, to me, is in stark contrast to your opponent, frankly, who, as a representative, I haven't seen any evidence that he cares about me or that he's going to care about future generations. So my question is, and I think it's a simple one, what can you do or what can you say now so that when my son Josh and I walk out tonight, we feel that Representative Welle is going to continue to have the energy and listening to this candidate?
Thanks for that. The role of a representative is to listen and to put your needs first. I'm also committed to listening to our Democratic friends, our Independent friends, and Republican friends. So that sets the context for someone who you may not always agree with, but is committed to everyone here. So their voices are heard, as Tricia said. Look, I think you should look at the body of work that started when I was 18 years old. That's someone who was trained early on to wake up at 0500, kind of go to bed at 23:30, to do it again and again and again. I remember after graduating in Annapolis and 9/11 happened, I deployed for 7 months to the Persian Gulf. For 127 days, we didn't touch land. We were working our way across the oceans to be a part of the Operation Iraqi Freedom Mission, and it was 7 days a week. It was 7 days a week, sometimes all through the night, 36 hours straight without sleep. And that's sometimes the job that's required here. And when I think about my role and I marry up serving out of uniform to serving in uniform, it's getting the best out of people. And it's having a partnership with our councilmen and our mayors and our committeemen and even those of the other party to know what their needs are. So I look at the service of a congressman, much like the energy and effort that I brought to bear in uniform. And the endurance is there, the passion is there. My wife and I live in Rumson. My parents are here, they live in Red Bank. My brothers live in Red Bank and Rumson. Our family is from Monmouth County. And my commitment is to be here and to serve you every day and work tirelessly. I'm committed to term limits as well. So I want to put it all in the field, and I want you to promote me or send me packing, because this is not a lifetime appointment. I think too many people stay in office way too long. Chris Smith is only in office because of gerrymandering, money in politics, and a lack of term limits in this country. A lot of those issues undermine the fabric of our democracy. And I'm committed to instilling a more vibrant a vibrant democracy where people feel heard. And Chris Smith doesn't listen. He doesn't hustle from town to town. He's not out every weekend. He's not doing town halls. So I want you to see my body of work, 12 years of active duty, 7 days a week, 365. As having that same passion when I go to work for you in Washington and serve you here on the Jersey Shore. Thanks. You can say it.
Well, my name is Lester Hemphill, and I live in Whiting, which is part of Manchester Township, the internet has been a marvelous example of freedom of speech, but unfortunately the FCC has some Trump appointees that want to turn the internet into a profit-making deal. And where do you stand on net neutrality?
Thank you so much. It's an important question for our generation in this adaptive economy. I'm strongly in favor of preserving net neutrality and making sure that the internet waves are free and equitable to all businesses, so that we don't have a situation where it's the have versus the have-nots in the digital world. There's a situation right now where corporations are making more and more money than most of the middle class. There is an inequitable ratio between those manufacturing goods and the labor supply, all those with the capital, all those in the C-suite, all those in the highest levels of business are making more and more money by the workers don't have access to those profits. The same can play out in the internet. Now the internet is, we'll talk about two things. First is free speech. It is a scary situation when we have a president invoking fear in our press today. It is a slippery slope towards authoritarianism. It is a slippery slope towards civil unrest. And we have a president who's invoking fear and hatred in our country and demonizing our press and the freedom of the press. And with the internet, with access to the internet, we have access to information. And I've been to 45 countries around the world. I've been to Afghanistan, I've been to Liberia, I've been in the Middle East. These countries would desperately have access to information that we have here. And when you talk about limiting access to information on the internet and giving more power to the ISP providers, we have a real problem, because you start to limit information, limit free press. The other issue I want to talk about, we went through this with privacy and our election intrusions, with the Russian cybersecurity crisis that we're having in the country, is that we're at a new frontier. And government needs to have an active role in the future of information in this country. We know that Russian bots were active in our elections. We know that it had influence over our elections. And we need people in Washington who understand the digital age. One reason I left the Navy after 12 years was to be a part of this new economy, to be a part of the digital world, because it was changing every aspect of education and transportation and infrastructure. And we need leaders in Washington who understand how to bridge that new future so that we can have a safe, secure, inclusive digital world. This is very important public policy, and it's the new frontier of legislation. So I want to be a part of that new generation of leaders who address the importance of the internet and the aspects of public goods.
Hi, my name is Lisa Morris. I wanted to know, I'm an ESL teacher, which is English as a second language, so I have, the bulk of my students are, I have some Puerto Rican students, but most of my students are from other countries. Now, we're a country of immigrants and they're scared. I have students coming up to me every day crying, what's going to happen to me next? Now, you've been abroad, so you know the monster thing's not true, that people that are immigrants are not monsters. I have Mexican dreamers in my class, and they are so depressed and so scared, and they need somebody to stand behind them. I just wanted to know what you would do, how you would fight to protect their rights, even though they're not citizens and they can't vote.
Sure. Well, hands together for your leadership and teaching the next generation of Americans. We need a clean DACA bill. DACA kids that are here need a pathway and clarity so they can go to school and feel safe. We need a pathway to citizenship for the 11+ million immigrants who are undocumented here, that are participating in our economy, that are adding value to our lives here in Red Bank and Freehold and Neptune and Wall Township and Manasquan and everywhere in between. We need strong borders to make sure that drug trade and illicit activities that happen across our border are addressed. We need to punish people that break our laws, that make us less safe. But we cannot demonize, we cannot discriminate, we can't abandon our values as an inclusive, positive immigration country. I mean, we all came here from somewhere. We all pursued the American dream. And I think the last best thing we have going in America is that people want to come here, to raise their family, to believe in the religion they want to believe in. And that's what makes us so special and competitive and aspirational. If we want to fix immigration in America, I suggest we invest in Central America and have a Marshall Plan for our southern border. People are fleeing countries where there's no governance, where there's corruption, where women are being sexually harassed, or worse yet, sexually assaulted or raped. They are fleeing to this country for safety, and we're going to separate mothers from their children at the border? It's wrong. So what I would do is I would work with like-minded people to address the DACA insecurity. I would work to separate the judiciary process in the Justice Department so that if you're seeking asylum and you need a hearing, that the people who are hearing you out are not the same people who are putting you in detention facilities. Presently, all that process is meshed together, which doesn't allow for autonomy. We have corruption, and we have malfeasance in our immigration controls. We need to have an inspector general, an autonomous government oversight at the federal level, policing the police. It's one of the few government agencies that doesn't have an inspector general for conduct. Because it's in the Justice Department, there's a feeling of inherent compliance. We need to preserve human rights. We need to address any atrocities on the border. We need to make sure that we respect people that keep us safe and find those that violate our values and our principles. I marched in the Red Bank March with the separation of families. My earliest days of understanding about the American dream were bussing tables and washing dishes in a restaurant in Belmar with immigrants from other countries. And I taught them English, and they taught me Spanish, so I passed my high school Spanish exam. Then when I was in the Navy, some of the best sailors I ever worked with came from Mexico, Ghana, Eritrea, Burma, Philippines. These are people who love our country, want to serve our country in uniform. So all of my public policy, perspectives are grounded in personal experience. So I want to make sure people know I'm a friend to immigrants who want to seek a better life here, who follow our rules, and want to live the American dream.
When you're elected, that would mean that the Democrats will take take back the House. What will you do with the Democratic majority to do something to fix and restore the institutions that have been so severely damaged over the last 2 years?
That's a great question. The question from Mary Catherine, what town are you from, Mary? Robbinsville, respect right here, coming out from the other side. Look, I think there's 3 or 4 things that come to mind right away. It's to preserve and protect the Mueller investigation, which is accountability for the I think another area of great concern tied to the executive branch is the emolument clause. And then we have a president that's profiteering since day one, which goes against the Constitution. Thirdly, we need to address the future of our judiciary. We'll start with Kavanaugh right now, who's up for his nomination. The House of Representatives doesn't have a lot to do with that, but I think we can call for a dialogue on who and what justices are coming forward. The Senate Judiciary is going to approve most of our federal courts, but we need to have an active House of Representatives that watches closely how our conservative courts over the next 2 years evolve. I mean, likely we'll have a Republican Senate and a Republican president, which allows for our federal court system to move towards conservatism. And Roe v. Wade is under attack. I commit to preserving the rights of women to make their own health care decisions in this country. I commit to funding Planned Parenthood because it's about health care. Right? It's so much more than simply talking about reproductive rights. It's about education and health and sexually transmitted diseases and education, and we need to do that. So again, I'm concerned about the conservatism that's taking over the judiciary. And I think this last point on some of these institutions you're talking about is preserving civil liberties. Civil liberties. If we want to talk about the institutions of this country eroding, it has a lot to do with the ACLU, what they're fighting for, the inclusion of LGBT community, and we have to be mindful. I mean, if you see what's happening at the Equal Justice Institute, or the Southern Poverty Law Center, or what's happening with hate crimes in this country, these are a byproduct of people not paying attention to civil liberties and civil rights. And we need a new generation of civil rights activists and people who protect those, because those are the fundamental building blocks of a safe and just society. So we should be mindful of how our executive branch exercises its power and ensuring that everyone has equal protection under the law, assured due process. These are the pillars of a great democracy, and these are the things my friends and I learned to defend when we were in uniform. When you join the military, enlisted, officer, it doesn't matter, Air Force, Army, even the Marine Corps. It's a joke about the Marine Corps. You are committed to defending this Constitution, not to a political party, and we are deeply committed to preserving that for everyone. So those are the things I think about when you talk about preserving institutions and holding this president accountable.
Following up on talking about the court here, there's been talk about adding justices to the Supreme Court, particularly if Kavanaugh or someone like him is confirmed, and assuming that we get a Democratic majority after November. Do you think that's a possibility? Do you think it's realistic? How do you feel about it?
It's something I haven't heard much about. I want to look at it. And sort of my thoughts are there are other areas of the Constitution or lawmaking that are a little less permanent as changing the composition of the Supreme Court. What I'm hoping for is, what's disappointing to me is this, when Obama had a year left in his presidency and Merrick Garland, Justice Garland, was not brought through and given a fair judiciary committee hearing. That tells me it's not the fact we don't need 9 or 12 judges or different. We just need a Congress that works. We need a Congress that works. And all of you should probably, I look at this audience and I don't see a lot of ideologues. I don't see a lot of people who aren't just focused on their family, just focused on making sure they can get ahead. They want to be good citizens in their community, and they just wonder why those people in Washington are so much more concerned about re-election and being divisive than they are working together. And if you have a congressman or you have a senator that doesn't build bridges, that doesn't find ways to move us forward, vote him out. If you have a congressman who doesn't do town halls, vote him out. If you have a congressman that doesn't do debates, when you're called on for a debate, vote him out. Chris Smith is not a leader. Chris Smith is a coward. Chris Smith is not going to shape those agendas you're talking about. He is an extremist, and you're talking about important issues of public policy and accountability in our courts. Where's Chris Smith's voice on the courts? What has he said about Kavanaugh? What has he said about sexual harassment? What has he said about separation of families? It's unacceptable. And we have a real chance to unseat him. We have a candidate who's prepared to unseat him. And we better leave this place tonight and tell everyone in this district to vote him out.
That was a great answer to my question.
Thank you.
Which is, you can't do any of this unless you get elected. And last weekend I was canvassing. And what really startled me was that many of, well, most of the people were in. But into the mic so we can hear you.
A little closer to the mic.
Okay, of the people, who actually answered the door, most of them didn't know who you were. And what I'd like to understand is, how are you going to change that and so that you can get elected? Are you going to be, I'm just challenging you to do, this is great, but well-meaning people in a church is not going to get you elected. You somehow got to get the word out everywhere. And I have no idea how to do it, but I'm just challenging you to, get some mail.
Great.
Well, I was just canvassing,
Yeah.
I'm from. But, okay. that's-
Well, so thank you for that. Thank you for your brutal honesty. I often follow such questions with, did they know who Chris Smith was? And often I get no. And then I often hear if someone saying, I thought my congressman was Frank Pallone. And they need to be educated that it's not. So look, we're going to win in November. We got some work to do. And the way to do that is to, like you said, shine a light on Chris Smith's extremism. He does not advance equal pay for women. He does not believe women should have reproductive freedom. He does not believe in equal rights for people in the LGBT community. Flat out, unacceptable, full stop, resign, referendum on Chris Smith. We could just run on that. I think we'd win. But you also have to tell people what you're for. We're not just against Chris Smith and his backwardsness. We're for a better America. We're for a new generation of leaders. We're for a responsible climate change policy. We're for all these things. And I was a veteran. I am a veteran, right? I grew up here. The only way you shine a light on Chris Smith's extremism and lift up this candidate who was born in Trenton, raised in Wall Township, and went to the Naval Academy and served overseas is for us to be on TV, to be on social media, to be on signs around the district. And that takes your commitment and investment. I've sworn to take no money from corporations. That's so NRA and all these dark money in politics don't control my voice, and it keeps me from representing you. But that means all of you need to make sure you invest. If you want a better future, you need to invest. There's not one group I go to, I say, I sort of go like this, I say, okay, this group, everyone here tonight, talk to Stephanie at that table, give $100 to this campaign so we can get the word out. Invest in this. It is worth it. Invest in safer schools for your kids. Invest for healthcare for everyone. I believe healthcare is the building block of a great society, and we need it. Healthcare is too expensive in America. And after you've done putting your treasure into this effort, keep giving your time. Keep knocking on doors, make phone calls, volunteer, have this blue wave sweep over New Jersey. Now it's happening. This is ground zero for winning the House of Representatives. We are going to win all 5 seats. The governor and the leaders of the delegation, and Cory Booker, he's been running around the district helping candidates win. So the name's out there, but it's got to be out there more. And the only way we get there is TV and mail. I mean, I got seniors in Jackson that are saying, "Where's the letter? I'm waiting for the letter. Mail me the letter, and I'll vote for you." It's okay, contribute $75 at welleforcongress.com. You know, it costs us $30,000 to mail like 1 piece of literature to this whole district. So money in politics is a problem. I can't fix that today. What we can do is invest. And I think we need to distribute that. We don't want a handful of people to be throwing thousands of dollars at this campaign. We want all of us to contribute our fair share. So tonight, I challenge you to do that. Invest in this cause. Talk to my staff. Make sure you make it possible for us to get the word out. So thank you.
Joanne Drennan, I live in Neptune.
Hello, Joanne Drennan, how are you?
I want to thank you and commend you for running. It's a hard time to get out there in the climate that we're in. And also, I feel that you are not the only veterans for the country running. I think that's a big asset. I think that in itself can get people out, because we've been, that we have a man in charge of our country who knows Zippo, and we have congressmen who don't care. So you are you're an asset, and I do thank you and commend you.
No, thanks for that comment. When I was, I had a great, I didn't have a lot of money for college. Going to the Naval Academy was such a blessing. And while I was there, the people that came through and would speak to you in rooms like this or bigger auditoriums, it would change your life. We had Hillary Clinton come, we had Jimmy Carter come, we had Bob Dole come, we had George Bush come. We had John McCain come speak to us 3 weeks after 9/11. And when John McCain talks to you 3 weeks after 9/11, a person who was in Vietnam, shot down, a prisoner of war, a true American hero, that changes your view of your calling in life. So this, to me, is an extension of that. The reason we have veterans running for office is we think the enemies are here. And we got enemies abroad, but we got enemies in, right around 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. And we're running towards the fire. Just like John McCain told us to do 3 weeks after 9/11, is to answer our call to service. I think John McCain was sending us a signal a few weeks ago. When he said, get past the tribalism, get past the us versus them, open your door, walk across the street, shake hands with somebody. When I was knocking on doors in Manchester a few weeks ago, I knocked on the door of an African-American guy. He was in his mid-60s, heavy set. And he came out and we just started to talk, and he was sort of nervous when I sort of first approached. And my nephew was with me, which is really powerful. My nephew's about 11, 12 years old, it's just brilliant. So this guy just started to explain to us his life in Manchester. And he said something to the effect of, the guys I used to be friends with, the white guys in Manchester, I played football with, they don't talk to me anymore. That guy across the street is a big Trump supporter. I said, will you put my sign up? He said, I don't know. I don't know if I feel safe putting your sign up in front of my yard. When he goes to the barber shop, the barber shops in different parts of our community, I think to talk about politics, and some people like to the Republican Party likes to wrap themselves in the American flag, and the national anthem, and the Pledge of Allegiance. And that's we talk about veterans running for office, nobody's going to out-patriotism me. I'm going to VFWs in Jackson and Freehold and Hamilton. Last week I broke bread with a 100-year-old guy who immigrated here from Puerto Rico in the 1920s, served in the Battle of the Bulge. Wow. 100 years old. A few days ago, we're at Seabrook. One of our strongest supporters, her father, is in his 90s. He was a prisoner of war in World War II. He's a Republican. I think he's a Republican. He was captured for 15 months. So this veteran thing is really powerful. We're going to win this election. What I think is happening right now is a rejection of the hatred, a rejection of the vitriol. There's a lot of disillusioned Republicans who are voting for me. There are a lot of people, once they find out our story with this call to service, are voting for me. There's a lot of women who are tired of this president and what he's doing for women around the country who are voting for me. So the veterans that are running is so important. When we go there, we're going to get to work in a unified way. So thank you for calling that out. I'm honored to be amongst some of the 25 veterans around the country to go to Congress and get this country on track.
Hi Josh, my name is Kim Dixon. I'm from Welle.
Yes.
I am in a very Republican neighborhood. I proudly put up my sign and was waiting for the house to get egged, but so far so good. And I had a closet friend ask me to get her a sign. So that's been my week so far. But I'm hosting a meet and greet at my house for you in October. At my newfound empty nesting age, I've decided paring down my friend list is probably happen naturally with the sign, but that's okay. At any rate, so one of the questions would love to come to your defense on is because you brought it up, the whole American flag thing.
Sure.
So I have very reasonable girlfriends I don't talk politics with, but boy, are they steadfast about this standing for the flag thing. And, you know, I don't have that opinion. So, you know, I think I can regurgitate well your pro-women and you know, Christmas isn't, and the LGBT things and the things that, you know, interest me and my friend group. But the flag thing I find to be a sticking point with folks sort of my age, like college kids, you know, voting for the first, second, third time. You know, it's one of the, I found one of the most divisive things we can talk about, so some...
Yeah, so I'll give you some feedback, some thoughts on that. Well, thanks for sharing. Look, it's a sad day in America when we try to politicize the national symbols that generations have come to love, that billions of people around the world have come to emulate, and we are slowly tearing away the symbols of greatness that is our country. It has nothing to do with the political party. So I think what we should say is ask people, well, what do you think that flag stands for? What do you think that's, you know, what do you think this symbolizes? Do you think it symbolizes low taxes and small government? Do you think it symbolizes tax cuts for corporations? Do you think the American flag symbolizes anything associated with political division? It doesn't. The flag is a symbol of our story, of how we've adapted and improved and progressed over decades and centuries. And that the reason we're still a great country is because we have a system of government that is democratic, that is inclusive, which gives voices to the voiceless and power to the powerless to live the life they want to lead in tolerance and safety. And people who try to appropriate this notion that veterans are offended when flags are not saluted or kneeled before, I mean, it's nonsensical. Veterans sacrifice so much for their families and their communities and the Constitution. And we are trained and we are told very early on that your loyalties are to something much bigger than a president, depending their name, because those people come and go. That our loyalties, and my loyalty, this candidate for Congress, is the Constitution and those true symbols of democracy. And then you should tell them and ask them, what do you think that flag stands for? It doesn't stand for a political party. It stands for something much bigger than that. And the people that are in Arlington and the people that never came home are missing in action or died in faraway lands are for something that's much bigger than any candidate for Congress or candidate for president. And God knows they didn't die for this guy to sit in the White House.
Both
So,
my parents are very young.
well, thank you for that. And look, and being a veteran is humbling, but a lot of you here, raise your hand if you're a teacher. See, a lot of you teachers out there are doing God's work. A lot of the people who are first responders are doing God's work. A lot of people that are in our hospitals are doing God's work. Our veterans have an important mission for our country, but all of us who are active in our communities and serving others are staying side by side. Let's get past the us versus them. Let's stop using symbols as a tool to divide us. And let's appeal to our better angels and do better in Wall Township and do better throughout New Jersey. Because I'm coming back to Wall. I mean, that's my jam. Central School, Allenwood Store, Belmar Boulevard. So you tell all your friends who want to talk about this topic, I'll see you at your meet and greet. I think it's okay.
In 2014, 80% of young people did not vote. Did not. What's going on?
Yeah.
What do we do? It's crazy.
Yeah. First of all, let's get Josh up here. Get over here. Now, I would say Josh was emblematic of our typical high schooler, but he's got a bow tie on. Josh is like 17, going on 40. Very proud. And he has been leading a lot of our high school outreach, so thank you for that. Thanks for your leadership. So that's one piece with high schoolers. The other piece is I think young people need to feel that they have skin in the game, that they're being heard, that their issue set is being addressed. Now, I'm deeply concerned about the future of Medicare and Social Security and Medicaid. Those are some important issues that are under attack by the Republican Party. Their fiscal irresponsibility of putting all those programs in jeopardy. But that's a tough thing for a young professional to care about. They want to hear about college affordability. They want to hear about human resources and HR policies for women in the workplace and equal pay. They want to make sure that they can start a business and have a sort of a lifestyle where they can have more mobility, because that's the future. So if we're running for office and want them to vote, we got to talk to them about the issues that they care about. And I think this college loan crisis in America is front of mind. I think there's some parents here too who are a little concerned. So I think if we want to earn their vote, we have to, maybe our next town hall can be focused on young people, and you can talk to your young professional children in the district or some seniors that will focus on those issues. Do young people, I know they're a strange creature. They're called young people. Look, we have to do a better job. You know, one thing I heard a lot about in the military, because the average age of people in the military are like 18 to 26. And when you're 32 or 33, they start calling you, what's up, old guy? You know, geez Louise. So I think what you have to do is, kind of meet them where they are at the coffee shops, or apparently people are going to football stadiums or arenas to watch people play, what's like some of the Fortnite, right? I gotta go to a Fortnite event. And 2 weeks, and my point is, let's not look at them as if they're doing something wrong. Let's look at ourselves as if we're doing something wrong. And we, as leaders, need to build bridges with young people to get them activated to be a part of the political process. Because they're gonna inherit this earth, whether they like it or not, and they want a future that they should be proud of. So I'm going to work better at filling my staff with young, bright, talented people. I hear their issues. We should take more initiatives to make sure they're part of this campaign, and then they should have a role in shaping the agenda, because their voices matter. So we're going to give you our last question. Happy to stick around for 10, 15 minutes, as long as you guys want to stay and talk to me, but I want to be respectful of people's time. And with that, I did make a hard ask of you. It was to go to this table, to contribute $100 to this campaign, and make sure we're successful. You will then be on Team Welle, which is exciting, because I'll probably call you in a week and say, can you come volunteer? Can you come bring a friend? Let's build this blue wave together, all right? So in advance, thank you so much for answering your call to duty and making sure you're going to be part of the solution when we break from here. Last question. Yes?
Well, actually, I have two questions, but you pick which one you're ready.
Okay. Choose your own adventure.
Okay.
Got it.
I'm a board member of the Red Bank Affordable Housing Corporation.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts about what you can do affordable housing come up on people? They're moving away because they can't live.
Sure.
Or they're gentrifying an area that is for affordable housing, which is another problem. The other question is about gerrymandering and voter suppression. The ones who ever change gerrymandering are the very ones who put gerrymandering there in the first place. So I'd like to have your comments on one of those.
I'll choose option A. Both those were really great questions, by the way, so thank you for that. The question is about affordability, how young, tied to young people, but also the sort of, there's the silent or invisible poor in Monmouth County. We have a lot of homeless people in Monmouth County. We have a lot of drug addiction. We have opioid addictions. We have mental illness. These things, I went to an event with some Republican leaders in this county who think church nonprofits and the Boys and Girls Club and a handful of these groups are going to solve systemic problems of inequality, of injustice, of poverty, of addiction. That's not going to happen. I'm a Democrat because I want to invest in people and create the building blocks for everyone to get ahead and to climb the socioeconomic ladder. That's why I'm a Democrat. I want to invest in people, not hope and pray that corporations trickle down a better future for all of us. So this affordable housing crisis in New Jersey is significant. It started in the early 70s when there was a requirement that different municipalities have, a balance of affordable housing, and slowly they've passed the buck. Right? So affordable housing has to do with our committeemen and our councilmen and women and our mayors. All politics is local, and you need to have ethical stewards of the public trust representing you twice a month at your council meetings. Because when the developers come and they get signed off on, they're going to determine what kind of composition your community has. And we're far better when we're diverse. We're far better when people, the problem with Monmouth County is you can't get from point A to point B and get to work. If you don't have barely have the bus transportation, not everybody has access to a car. It's a real problem in the center part of New Jersey. So look, first of all, we need a commitment to inclusion and diversity in our communities and acknowledge that if we live in a homogeneous community, that could be at our detriment, because that's not America. So we need to embrace that notion. Then we need to make sure people have the ability to pay their rent, ability to buy car insurance to get that car. I always talk about a woman I met at one of our African-American churches in the district. She's got 3 jobs, lives in a motel, pays $625 every 2 weeks. She can't even afford an apartment. She's a single mom of a 9-year-old daughter. And when I called her and I spoke to her for a half an hour about, what her hopes and dreams were, maybe if she wanted to come be a part of the campaign if she had time, all she wanted to talk about was how the grammar class for her daughter was insufficient to her standards. that all she could think about was her future of her daughter's education. She was unimpressed with the public education compared to what she got. This is a woman without a stove and only a hot plate. That's not how people should be living in America. We can do better. So SNAP and CHIP and the Farm Bill and protecting those building blocks, making sure that we are having those resources for Fulfill, which serves over 30,000 people in our district, making sure we have shelters for those who fall. I mean, it's not just affordable housing, women's shelters. There's a dearth of women's resources in this district. So my commitment is to lead by walking around, to go to these places that are in the shadows, to listen to those people who are struggling and bring their voices to bear on systemic solutions, not Band-Aids, to some real challenges of affordability that's happening in New Jersey. Thanks so much.